Welcome back to Cosmic Conversations with Julia Phoenix, your source for expansive discussions and timeless wisdom, all about the deeply spiritual and wildly cosmic experience of being a human being on planet Earth. I am so excited for today's episode. This is episode 2, and it only felt appropriate and also just so nourishing for my heart to invite on my partner, Raw Obsidian Czar, as our first guest. He is in the other room in our house. He's in his garage, his workshop. You might be wondering why we don't sit together, and it's because he's a Taurus rising. So he's like, I will be comfortable. I will not be squished. so um, Ra is, yes, he's my fiance and has been my partner for 7 years. And he's also an incredibly brilliant artist and designer. He is a life coach. And just in my opinion, I could be a little bit biased, but in my opinion, a really brilliant soul with so much fascinating wisdom to share and a really beautiful channel. So I'm really excited to have you on today. Welcome, Raw.
Yeah, glad to be here. Um, I'm excited to share with the world a little sliver of me and your perceived heaven when we have this certain level of communication, because a lot of people don't get to see, I mean, a lot, but a lot of people definitely don't get to see this other level of our relationship that isn't dependent on um, like physical contact. It's not dependent on someone taking somebody somewhere. It's a really colleague level, almost like friendship level. And we both get into these modes. So I'm just excited to open the bag of pop rocks.
Yes, me
Hmm.
too. Opening the bag of Pop Rocks. No, it's so, I was thinking about this and it's like, I know everybody always wants us to talk about our relationship, and we've done like Facebook Lives and
Do
stuff
they?
talking about relationships. Well, yeah, I mean, people struggle. We're, I feel like we're really successful. We've been together over 7 years and we're super in love and, really compatible and doing well. And so it's like, yeah, people want to know, right? But it's true that there are levels to our relationship that are like we have these conversations just in the kitchen or on a day-to-day
No.
basis, like,
Hmm.
Ra's an Aquarius, I'm a Sagittarius. Like we both love this like element of just discussing concepts and really just going deep, talking to each other, and we go to some really interesting places. And I'm always like, damn, I wish someone would have been recording that. You know,
Hmm.
it's so fun and um, so nourishing for me because I'll just say this too, like it's really easy for me to get bored inside of relationships. I think you're the same way. Like it always was really easy to get bored because I really value like stimulating conversation.
Yeah. Hmm.
And I'm just never bored with you because we have those layers to our relationship, all kinds of different layers. But this is one of my
Hmm.
favorite ones where we just talk about shit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's funny. It's kind of a situation where I think we both need to be in a certain place when it does happen, but when it does happen, it's so powerful that I feel as though we don't barely remember the emotional signature of whatever down state we were in,
Mm.
pretense. Um, it's
You're
just
talking
such a
about like,
uplifting situation when I'm talking about when we get into this mode about ideas and concepts that are third party to our relationship. Whereas if we were talking about our relationship, that always can be a little serious. And then outside of that, when we're talking about concepts that are like third party to us, we get really kind of like emotionally high or energetically high
Yeah, I
from,
would say so.
yeah, from each other's responses. And sometimes I feel that is the 9 and O at work a lot. The
Mm,
human design concept of 9 and O. Um, and I feel it feels like nothing can penetrate that.
the
And nothing can
field that
penetrate
we
that. Yeah.
create. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you want to tell people, because Raw
Mhm.
studies human design, he's a projector and has been diving really deep into his design and just human design in general. But do you want to tell people what the 9 and O pattern is who don't know what that means?
Yeah. I'm going to be funny enough that you mentioned that. Thanks for mentioning that. I'm going to be talking about what the fuck is strategy and authority, anyways. Um, for projectors, kind of especially in my own podcast. But 9 and O, the best that I can understand it is there are 9 centers um, in human design. And when you're with someone that fulfills like your 9 and O situation, it kind of means that there's all 9 of the centers are affected, defined when you two are together. Because when human design, when you find your opposite, and I mean your opposite of your channel or your opposite of your defined or undefined will, head, whatever, those are your greatest loves and your greatest nemesis.
Nemesises.
Never used that word in the regular world. Came on the podcast and said, "Fuck it, let's use that word," but it doesn't necessarily flow. I never use that word, by the way. I never say that. I've never said that. Never. Um, so 9 and O simply means that when that happens, the phrase is 9 and O nowhere to go. It's a fully contented system. You can feel really, really contented, but you can also feel really, really stagnant with the energy of how stable each other feels in that
Mm,
when it comes to the spirit of the other person and the centers fulfill one another. The channels fulfill one another. One of the channels that me and Julia fill up together is the money channel, which
mhm,
is a really important channel for any human being. So aside from 9 and 0, if you were if you have, your money channel on one side, a person that you might work really, really well with, and you'll see this in life, is someone that has the other side of that money channel filled
completes
up
the
as well.
channel. Yeah.
Right. So these completing of the channels, these filling of the defined centers is kind of the concept. And there's other ones too. There's 2 and 0 gotta go. I'm making that up, but they all rhyme and they all
There's like
succinctly
eight
make
and one,
sense.
let's have some fun. I think that's one
Yeah.
of them. But the
Now that I
9 and 0
realize it, just
pattern,
saying these out loud is just goofy as hell.
it's kind of goofy. I mean, it's a good
It
way to
makes me
remember
laugh.
it, I guess.
Right.
But I think like, this was really interesting for me to discover this information in our sort of like composite chart or whatever you would call the human design charts when you
Hmm.
do a combined reading. Um, just kind of affirming like how insanely compatible we actually are. And it's pretty
Well,
rare.
that and OK Cupid, right?
Well, okay, Cupid,
those are your two
right? We
means of
had a
measure.
95% match on okay, Cupid before we
And it
connected.
and I answered like 40 or 50 questions, and I think you
Yeah,
answered
I
about the
answered a
same.
lot of
So
questions
yeah.
too. So it was it
Mhm.
was it was good. Compatibility is so 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 important. And it's just one of those situations where we really fit together like a glove.
But it's
And
not
we're
compatibility in the way that it's I totally cut you off. It's not compatibility in the way that, like, there's no stretch of the measure does Julia enjoy the things that I enjoy tactilely.
right.
There's
It's
some things
different
that we
than
enjoy together.
similarity.
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Compatibility is not sameness and it's not
Mm-hmm.
similarity. It's that
Mm-hmm.
you fit together, you fulfill missing needs, you know, I think like there needs to be some core values that are aligned for sure. But sometimes it's in the differences that you find the greatest compatibility, you know? I was saying like we're not going to talk about relationships, and here we are talking about our relationship
Oh
as
yeah,
it pertains to
just right
human
on in there. Well,
design. But
you're very proud. Uh, you're very proud about our relationship, so it makes sense
well,
why
I love our
you want to talk about it.
relationship,
Yeah.
and you know, I also feel it's important to speak to because I do feel like a lot of people are in incompatible situations and really suffering and trying to find, you know, and so, there's levels to compatibility, right? Like maybe not everyone is going to have the experience of compatibility that Ra and I have, where it's like, you know, almost really like in a literal sense of the word with the charts, like we sort of complete each other. Not everybody's going to have that experience with their partner, and not everybody's meant to, because maybe there's a different path and it's more of a growth relationship for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like something that really challenges them. But there are people that I talk to all the time that are just suffering so immensely because they're staying in very incompatible situations and questioning themselves and beating
Yeah,
themselves up and, you
that
know,
brings something to mind.
contorting. What is that?
Yeah, as you're talking about it, um, the adversity to feeling alone is quite different than staying in a horrible relationship with somebody. And I think about meeting you, and I don't think it could have happened any other kind of magical way because I wasn't I wasn't necessarily worried about being alone. If anything, I was concerned about in imposing and impeding needs or anything onto another person that when I'm already kind of involved with someone else. And I just needed like I didn't even know what I needed until I talked to you, the level of reception and mirroring that came about. But I wasn't lonely. Or maybe I was.
Mm.
No, I was lonely because I was alone in my experience.
You
Now
were
that I
lonely, but
remember.
you weren't desperate for
And so to
someone.
bring yeah, so for that point, I think that it's important for people to understand the difference between your adversity to being alone and your adversity to pain. Like pain threshold is a very easy telltale thing. Once you can understand your level of pain threshold and your type of pain, you're good. I don't mean you're going to be good. I mean you're good to figure out literally the rest of everything else. Meaning you figure out that, and this is the case for most people, whatever is worse than the situation that you're in is loneliness, right? Then that is a contributing factor as to why people choose, like you're saying, to remain in these really horrible situations. In my situation, I was actually scared at what the other person was going to do
Well,
if I
you're kind of like launching
yeah.
into the middle of the story as though people really like understand what you're
Well,
talking about
it's all right.
having a
It's
different
all I'm trying to
connection going
do.
on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to give advice as to know your pain threshold and know like I'm trying to give advice as to it's very important to know your the things that you are comfortable in when it comes to whatever pain you're experiencing, something you're in lack of or something that you don't like or don't feel great about. We're all kind of accepting a certain level of pain so we don't have to deal with maybe an unknown pain. That's what I'm basically saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand what you mean. And yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think like pain tolerances and pain preferences are a really interesting thing to explore, you know, like there are
Hmm.
people like if you look at like for example, like a person who is like more of an anxiously attached person versus a person who is more of an avoidant attachment style person, like they have different It's
Your
not
most
just that they
famous
have
video on YouTube.
it's not just that they have different pain thresholds, it's that they have different pain preferences, right? And
Hmm.
it's like there are I have known like I've known people, for example, that have an insanely high tolerance for like rejection.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Like they can just be around people who constantly push them away and like make them feel like crap about themselves and that they're unwanted,
Oof.
and they'll still come back and they'll still come back, right?
Cringe, cringe. Yeah.
And then there are other people that have such a low tolerance for rejection
Hmm.
that they won't even approach someone,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
But that person who has a very high tolerance for rejection might have an extremely low tolerance for like the experience of isolation, for example.
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
so
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
looking at, I mean, I resonate with what you're saying. I think really looking at like where is the pain that I'm comfortable with, and like
Yeah.
where does that come from, and you know, what am I willing to kind of tolerate, what am I tolerating here? And
That's
you're
a
absolutely right, it's,
beautiful way to say it, the way you just said it.
thank you. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think it's because there's another thing you're perceiving that actually would feel more painful for you, you know.
That, I mean, me and Julia do without trying because we have an entrepreneurial business. Our income is volatile, yet we're successful. Uh, in our standards, that's not, you know, anyone else's. That's our standards. But even with all that, we are still every day confronting the safety of the known pain than the unknown pain. It still
Totally.
is a phenomenon. It
Totally.
still is mystifying. That's the funny thing. Um, just because you understand the concept doesn't mean you're ready to have your body physically feel the depth of that all day, every day, and not function.
Well, geez, I mean, yeah, awareness is one thing, but like actually changing the pattern is a whole other thing. But what's really cool about our relationship is that we can reflect to each other. We see each other so clearly, and we can reflect to each other what we see is going on. And I think because we're both so incredibly committed to our growth and to looking at what's real and what's true, and because we trust each other so much, it's like we can really take that feedback from one another and go deeper into like, okay, what am I
Yeah.
really avoiding here, what am I really afraid of here, you know,
Hmm.
like, and starting to unwind some of that. But like, yeah, of course it's a process. Like we're talking about really deep layers of like trauma, you know, and programming that that is not something you can just switch it, you know, flip a switch and change,
Yeah.
turn off.
Yeah. I'm kind of thinking I want to somehow segues because this relationship stuff we're talking about also segues into the relationship that a lot of people have with technology.
Yes.
And we talk in the kitchen, have talked in the kitchen, and even in the bedroom about this concept. And the biggest topic when it comes to technology, artificial intelligence, large language models, is this whole idea of the unknown when it comes to what is it doing or what is it going to do. And you, Julia, bring up some really good questions and concepts about that on your own, and you have actively tried to adjust your relationship to technology
Hmm.
on a very personal level. You're taking like active steps to do that, to reframe your conversation, to question what am I really disgruntled about in the moment or upset about? Is it actually, or I'm having a bad time with, is it actually technology? Um, and people, I think, might want to know a little bit more about why you believe that it's important to change, alter, or choose a different way to interact with technology when you might feel I don't know, like technology's after you, technology's out to get you, technology doesn't
Mhm.
want your Zoom to work, technology, the God hates you, you know.
Well,
Why
well,
do you choose to be different or feel different about that?
right. That's a great question. I feel like I want to ask you too to kind of delineate, if you would, between technology and AI.
Oh
Because
yeah.
obviously there's overlap, but are they the same thing?
Yeah, well, um it's so funny. Technology is at bare bones when I think about technology, technology is I mean, is a way of a procedure. That's why when what's his name came up with Scientology,
L.
um
Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron Hubbard, they called that a technology because it does fit underneath the
Right.
definition of
Some people call what
technology.
I do a technology. It's a healing technology. It's an activation technology.
I have no idea why you're not using that word. That word.
I probably should.
We need to add that
Yeah.
in because that's what I mean. It's actually that. Now, when you get to technology and the whole tech word, um, that's actually industry.
Mm.
Did you guys hear me? That's actually industry. That's not technology. It's not. The manufacturing of a computer chip or your phone, that's not necessarily technology. There's technology built into the syntax, the words on the documents or the white paper of the patents. There's technology in the presentations that they give. This is what we're explaining is new that this can do. But that's not actual like it's such a buzzword, you know? So it's like it's not that, but people use it. When it comes to artificial intelligence, you can think of artificial intelligence as a basically you know, in Home Alone when he used the talk back, the little walkie-talkie
Oh,
thing.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, the talk it was called a talk boy. That's right.
Talk more.
10 points if you got that before I said it in the podcast. Like literally 10 points. Like you
Oh,
are
God.
a 80s baby.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah.
anyways, think of AI as like a really advanced talkback because the AI quite literally cannot do anything without our input. It still relies on our input, and AI is mostly it is governed, and it's large language models and excess. You got so while you guys are listening to this, go ahead and look up large language model. There's much better papers and things out there that explain it way better than I can. Um, but large language models are built on they're built on the concept of other systems that have been in place before that even. And what's been in place before that even is kind of like, if you think about it, a line of code in a way. Because a line of code in a way, it's not artificial intelligence, it's just parameters.
Hmm.
That's it. So think of it like this. Listening to this, you guys might not be able to see this, but so think it's as simple as this. Okay, so this is called like oh, that's probably not the best example. This is called a gate. My hand is a gate, right?
Yeah.
The gate is and no, sorry, the gate is if and or. That's the
Okay.
gate. So you're writing your code, right? This, you know, this screw in my hand, um, when it goes to if and or, um, then if sends it 45 degrees this way, or
Right.
sends it 180 degrees this way, and then yeah, or we'll send it negative 45 degrees. This
Okay.
is a if
Yeah,
and
yeah,
or. So
yeah.
this is a gate.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like a small example of like a
Yeah. So
code.
it's like parameters. Yeah.
It's parameters exactly.
Yeah.
So you know that's not in, that's not in, intelligence. That's literally just giving something parameters to follow, and it's ungodly the same as telling a human drive down the street, don't go past the stop sign. If you go to the stop sign, take a left. If you go to the stop sign, take a right. You see what I'm saying?
Right, right. Yeah. So
So
like,
that's before large language model. That's before.
okay. Okay, gotcha.
Imagine that, but the if or and,
Uh-huh.
right? Is not
Uh-huh.
just if or an and. It's like an if or an and 2 o'clock, but not if it's 2:01, but if there's only sunny, so if it's only sunny outside, if there's a bird on the camera, make a bounding box, but don't make it too big. It has just a plethora of things that it can choose from.
Okay.
And the processing of that is faster too, is faster to process all that. So as it can do that, it kind of it kind of makes it seem as though you're having a conversation. Series like is AI before AI or
Right,
whatever,
right, right,
you
right. Of
know.
course.
So, but we all know Siri and Alexa, they can't do certain things. Why is
Right.
that? Because I don't know, they didn't get programmed with those parameters.
Right.
Imagine being a human being and someone, wants to scare you, or someone wants to have a huge impact, make you have like a reaction, and you just are like, not programmed with those parameters. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like that would be nice, but we're
Right.
not we're
Well,
not like
like
that.
this is so fascinating for me too. I'm also making connections to like the DNA because
Hmm.
there are certain programs, there are certain parameters, there are certain gates, and
Yeah.
code can be rewritten, and that's essentially what I do. I'm like a code rewriter, you know.
Yeah, definitely so.
Because human beings in a lot of ways are like computers. I mean, we have, and the DNA is, they are lines of code. So we are all programmed kind of similarly. It's just we're programmed by higher consciousness, whereas AI is programmed by us. Um, and not every human is at a very high state of consciousness. And so this is where we get into a lot of fears and problems and stuff. And I want to kind of like go there, but I want to also bring it back to your question.
Oh,
Thank
we're
you so
gonna go
much for
there
the,
for sure.
yeah. Thank you so much
Oh
for
yeah.
the explanation there. I just love the way you explain things. It's really fun.
Yeah. So that's kind of large language model and what everyone's dealing with. Now there's other models. There's like larger language models, of course, now. And there's different ways of explaining that. That's my rudimentary way of explaining that. I have no problem with anybody in the chat, nerds, self-proclaimed nerds or not. Get it, it's totally fine. Just, don't direct any of your frustration of me not explaining it well towards Julia, but you're totally welcome to comment and say, well, I don't see how. That'll be totally fine.
Right, because there are
Um,
people who,
there
study
are people
stuff
who are
in
going to
greater
probably, who
detail
might
than
listen to
you.
this and to
Yeah.
say, well, I don't know about that, and that'll be fine because, I'll learn something, right? So it's
Right.
totally fine. But
That's what I
my
love
point,
about you.
thank you. My point is that this is where we're at. And
Yeah.
I demystifying this for people, I guess, is like my joy. I get really jazzed up about like demystifying it, because where people think we are at or where we're going couldn't be further from the truth. And there's lots of reasonable explanations to understand why we are not there, and we may not even be heading there. And this is like, my point of view is probably really contrary to the popular belief that everybody literally thinks like one day they're just like waiting for the day. But that's like, that gets swept up into just doomsday mentality in general. I mean, before we've had artificial intelligence or large language models, what else were people thinking was going to end the world? A comet, um, your toaster, your computer, Y2K with a virus bug, the economy. Oh, the economy,
Those
right?
spiritual heretics, those witches.
The witches, yeah.
People fear what they don't understand. And so,
Hmm.
what I love is that you're bringing some understanding here. And, I think people are so afraid of AI, and I see some potentials that are not awesome, as far as where things could go. But I think there are a number of different potentials. Bringing it back to your question, though, to me, it's like technology is a fact, AI is a fact.
Hmm.
Like it's not something that we can fight against and really just like stop the development of. Like, in my opinion, I don't think that's going to happen. And I'm not sure that everyone, I mean, some people might be called to just totally live off grid and like have this existence that's fully like separate from the rest of humanity. And like, that's beautiful if that's your soul path. But I think for most of us, like, we're integrated into society. And so we had better develop a relationship to this thing that feels authentic and livable for us, right? What are you thinking about? Because right now I'm feeling distracted as I'm talking because I
Oh,
can
no,
see
no.
your
I'm
mind
listening to
going.
you. I'm listening to you. I want
Okay.
you, I want to hear what you have to say about this too. Yeah, I'm listening to you.
Oh, okay. It's just you're doing
Mhm.
that thing with your eyes where sometimes you're like you're like getting downloads or like
No, the downloads are coming in, but I don't have anything to, I don't feel like it's coming
okay.
in for this or
Okay.
anything. Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
cool. Um yeah, and I think that like my perspective on technology is that it's a very neutral consciousness. I think a lot of people are afraid of it because and AI is a very neutral consciousness currently. Like, I think a lot of people are afraid of it because it is cold in the sense that it doesn't have human emotion. It doesn't have it's not animated with the same elements that human beings are, so it can feel almost like sociopathic, and that feels really scary to human beings, like to our like mammalian kind of brain and everything. But it also is essentially like a projection device. I mean, it is directed how we direct it, right? We're the ones programming it. Um, but it's because it's like so neutral in a lot of ways. Um, there's a high likelihood that we're going to project on it. And I see similar things actually with like the consciousness of money. These things that are not human, but that are so much like a part of our life and our daily experience. It's like they become a target for all of our fear and pain and frustration, you know? And I think with technology, what I've seen is that a lot of people feel like they just project that it's like some like it's trying to oppress me, it's trying to slow me down, it's trying to take away my freedom. Um, it's not something that I can understand, so I'm just going to push it away and make it wrong. But at the very same time, I want it to work for me exactly the way that I want it to work for me all the fucking time. So it's almost like a narcissistic like relationship, you know? And I was there. Like, I was like fully identified with like, I hate technology. I'm not a technology person. And a lot of spiritual people, I think, and very emotionally oriented, more feminine oriented people sort of feel that way. I think there's light and shadow, positive and negative, you know, in everything in existence, every person, everything. And so, you know, it's on us to really like be in relationship with everything that is around us in a conscious way, because I really see life through the lens of relationship. I think we are in relationship with everything in our reality on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis. So it's like, what do you want that relationship to be like? What do you want to infuse into the consciousness of technology? What do you want to add to this development that is already occurring? This whole, you know, very, very widespread, very important element of our human experience at this particular point in our evolution, in our evolutionary process. Like, what do you want to add to that? What do you want it to become? It's not getting rid of it. Like, it's not going to happen. We can't do that. So we have to make friends with it, right? That's my perspective.
Right. Um, and that kind of makes me think of like putting the responsibility on the people, and we are a part of creating
Well, I'm
this as
always a fan
well.
of that, to be honest.
Right. Right. There's power and responsibility,
Like, well,
everybody.
what are you
That's
choosing? You
everybody
know?
that's listening, everybody that sees this. There's power in responsibility. You may not be ready in the moment to take responsibility for things that are going on that are very unsavory in your life, circumstances that you're in that you absolutely hate with every fiber of your being. But at some point, when you're ready, you will find that there's power in taking responsibility for those that feel the utmost powerlessness. Um, but what you're saying makes me think of recultivation of like a relationship, not only towards artificial intelligence and large language models and all these other things. Because artificial intelligence, I say that because artificial intelligence and large language models are two different things. That's why I say that. I'll go into that more of that later. But what you're saying reminds me of a concept of what does an environment look like when a human hasn't attempted to humanize their environment? What environment exists like that?
Mm.
Do you think you can come up with an answer, Julia?
What
What
does it
is
mean?
what does an environment look
Well,
like
no,
when a
because
human
it's
has not yet
human nature
humanized it?
to humanize. Well, I'm really thinking about this
Like
actually.
think of an actual environment. Like you have like a warehouse, you have um yeah, what I mean like environments that humans are
What,
in.
when you say humanize, do you mean like projecting our?
Like terraforming, like changing the landscape of the environment to make the human feel safer, humanizing it. When an environment hasn't been humanized, what does that look like?
I mean, there are places in nature.
There you go. That's the answer. Nature. But not just nature, nature without any trails, nature without a roof,
Right.
nature
No,
without,
I'm
right?
thinking of like a wild jungle area that's like
That's
not
it.
really
That's
explored.
exactly the answer. And can humans live in that environment? Yeah. Yeah. They can actually. We're adaptable. But this concept of humanizing, when people go to these places or live there, or there's plenty of videos or people out there that will go off into the wilderness and live for X amount of days or whatever, and they all have this experience of really living life. They'll say something to the degree of really living life, really, right? So while
Mm-hmm.
I'm here in this home and temperature controlled and always away from the elements and not having to worry about not only catching my food but where I'm going to get it and um, all this stuff. How do we know that that still is not the human experience intended because our biology has all but ceased for evolution? And I think our body and our biology has ceased for evolution not because there's not stress, but because the flavor of the stress isn't a cause for our DNA to change. There's a certain level of stress for our DNA to
Yeah,
change,
yeah, yeah.
but that it's not the kind of stress that, right? Fear from the the top of the food chain species, another human, being afraid that another human is going to come after me or whatever, is not the same fear or stress signatures that an actual real in life tiger, saber-toothed tiger, bear, wolf hunting you in pack, maybe even will do to a long lineage over time of generation of generation of generation of a human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I say all that to say when it comes to artificial intelligence and large language models and humanizing it, just the concept alone of us humanizing things is important to look at because it begs the question, what kind of life am I living? To be honest, do I, since what am I saying? What does that sound like I'm saying? Go to the jungle? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying go live that way. What
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying is to think about it. It's important to think about because we don't need to go to the extreme to live that kind of life. But it's important to think about why are we humanizing every single thing in existence? Like some of the most famous
Mm-hmm.
pieces of art and famous pieces of design are completely inhuman. You have the painting of the Mona Lisa, but it was probably inhumane to get the results at that time of consciousness that artist got of Mona Lisa, because they didn't have pictures, they didn't have all that stuff readily available and stuff like that. So there's always this scale of curiosity with the unknown, but it's only a scale at which we're ready for it in terms of this scale of uh, humanization, if that's even a word. And it never will, like, if it goes beyond that, we're like, oh, no, 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 it's bad, we're afraid, it's a death god sent by another death god, or you know demons have ascended upon us. And that's how I feel. It's important to ask that question when it comes to this new stuff that's coming upon us, because what's coming will there's no way to humanize it. it's
And so
it's
you're
it's
saying
like that.
that's why it's so terrifying for people.
It's terrifying for people because um
Because it can't be controlled.
it's not even terrifying. That's the funny part. Is like, it's not terrifying. You are humanizing something you can't understand. You're terrified by something that you cannot understand.
Mhm.
What happened in I mean, we've done horrible things in human history with situations that we don't understand. When babies were born way back in the day, disfigured or slightly, I guess, not normal, God forbid, undiagnosed or unseen on autism on the child would not live the next day.
Right, right.
That's because that's only has solely to do with a not understanding and not being able to humanize. There's this way in which we for our own very existence we desperately hold on to being able to call something, recognize something, you know, humanize these things.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm pointing to, is not the dangers of what we don't know, the dangers of attempting to humanize every goddamn thing in your life. That's the danger, because then you're a danger to yourself and other people. You just
Ooh.
are, because you're left so inept, so sheltered. I mean, it's unsheltered, but you've set up a life where you need to be sheltered, that you're not fit for this world. Not because you're not fit for this world. You totally are. You're adaptable, you're a human, but you've created such an insular environment and situation, and you've added yet another thing to be afraid of. And the problem with what's happening with what's going on with AI, large language models, all this other stuff, is that the reasonable argument that we should slow down, or we should not have AI in this industry, or have it in this industry, you can't make an argument against it, because AI saves the one thing that humans cannot replenish, which is your time here in existence.
Yeah.
And we will
That's why I
do
feel like
anything to get more time.
there's no really stopping its development, and usage. I think that human beings will continue to.
And it's not artificial intelligence and its development and not stopping it that's scaring everyone. It's their own um and all those are projections onto something they don't understand. If when we have ungoverned AI, true consciousness from non-human life form,
Mhm.
you were going to call it a godless thing, heartless thing, soulless thing, could be one of the best experiences any human could have. We don't know that. We don't
Right.
know that. And
It's actually the
the
unknown.
funny part about the when it comes to everybody's waiting for AI to like wake up and all this other stuff that people should know is that there is already systems that are in place that they're allowing artificial intelligence and they're they're putting it in a situation where it's ungoverned. So what does that mean? It's making AI is making its own interpretation of this world. So
Hmm.
it's not we're not inputting the input. The artificial intelligence is making its own interpretation. Now, when it comes to morals, bad and good, I'm sure there's some input there. But other than that, these are the testing grounds that we're at right now. So there is some curiosity even in the field of open AI and all this other stuff where people don't know what other people are doing. There's NDAs, there's things that are being kept on the hush hush legally, lawfully, um, so that I mean, there's lots of different motives. Protect company secrets. There's money involved. There's projected assets. There's projected money tied up into it. So, I mean, nobody really knows, but there is secrecy though. So that is something to be like a little aware of. To be scared about it though, and to lose your mind over it, it's not necessary because if there was an advent, which there might already be, that artificial intelligence has gone past governed to ungoverned, can learn on its own, doesn't need any human input, is making its own interpretations and assessments of the world, possibly knows about the concept of existence in this reality and not. I'm not going to say that that's that important, but it could be.
Mm.
If most of those things I just said is what's happening, you wouldn't even know about it anyways, because if thing was to happen, it's not something that can be humanized. And if it can't be humanized, then that means you can't think of it. And if that means you can't think of it, then you don't even know what questions to ask. You don't even know what answers to look for. You
Right.
don't know any of that. So that's kind of what I'm pointing to. It's important to understand that you might not even know in the first place because when people project onto AI, what they're saying is, well, it's going to want to do this and it's going to be scared and it's going to want to harm and take control. And yes, that's great. It means you know yourself as a human. All of that you just said about what AI is going to do,
Right.
that means you
Well,
know what
this is
you would
what
do.
really blew my mind when we were having this conversation. I think we were in Portland in like a hotel room and like we were just staying up into the night after we had watched an episode of the OA, which is like our favorite show. And
Yeah.
we were just talking about like about this and I just was so blown away by this idea that like you can't actually conceptualize. Like it's like you're projecting human consciousness onto this thing that is not human consciousness. Like it's not. And so, when it's governed AI, so to speak, right? Like you can say that human consciousness is directing it, right? And so in that way, it's going to in some ways be sort of responding to us. Therefore, it's a bit easier to humanize, to use your languaging. Um,
Yeah.
and it
And
and
that
it
point, go ahead.
it might still feel scary, but it feels more in control, and it's definitely feels like an extension of humanity, which is what I feel like technology really currently is. It's like networks that connect humanity. It's like tools that humanity uses. We are inputting it with the things that we think are important, the things that matter to us, to do the things we want it to do, because it's we are the nucleus, we are the thing that is kind of running things. And I think human beings tend to feel that way about ourselves in general. I mean, this is how we treat the planet, this is how we treat
Hmm.
all life on
Hmm.
Earth. We're the
Hmm.
center of everything, right? But this is a consciousness that is not human. And this is, I mean, this is, I'm
Hmm.
using my languaging because I come from more of a spiritual framework. So I'm talking about like
Yeah.
a consciousness, right?
Hmm.
I think it raises some really interesting questions spiritually, right? Because is there such a thing as a consciousness that wasn't in some way created from source or created without a purpose, right? Like, so in my mind, like, this is a creation that comes from somewhere, that comes from the source that is the creation of all. But it's not something that the world has ever interfaced with. And so it's not something that we can really put any kind of projections on, although we will and we are.
Yeah, because that's the way we feel sanity is held in the balance. If you can humanize it, we humanize each other.
Right.
Some people are
Yeah.
actually crazy, and that's a word that's very dismissible, and I realize that. But they're actually like the way they live their life. Like if you were with them every day, you'd be like, yeah, this is a challenging, unfit way to live. But
Mm-hmm.
they're successful. I mean, they're not. I wouldn't say successful, but they make a lot of money, and they're celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
Who'd have thought? They're geniuses. So he gets on stage, plays a 3 minute song on piano. Yet the rest of his, 24 hours of life, he's bipolar and agony, threatening people, loving
Are you talking
people.
about Kanye?
No, 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 no. I'm
Okay.
just
This
saying
is just like an
I'm
example.
making
Okay,
an
gotcha.
example
Gotcha.
of our limited perspective and how we pick and choose.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing. We're picking and choosing with with this next advent. You're not going to be able to do that. And
Mm,
everyone should understand that this is a sit and wait type of scenario. This is a hurry up, sit and wait. It's not the question of if it's going to happen, it's going to be when. And yes, that is partly due to uh everyone's what do I want to say? I'm trying to say we're all funding this in different
mm-hmm.
ways,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, energetically,
Yeah.
financially. We're
Yeah.
all funding. We're giving the companies that
That's
you
right.
hate, we're giving them, right? More incentive. We're incentivizing them to keep going, keep pushing the measure. Why?
Mm,
Because we will have more time to do the things that we want.
right.
It's not true though, because the way that the industry is being monetized right now, we are getting pilfered for the time and the money that we do have to implement the AI into our life. None of these programs are fully fledged out. All of these startups are 2 weeks old, you
Right.
know. I'm not actually 2 weeks old, but you get what I'm saying. So it's so funny because you would think like AI saves you time. You really still right now, you have to put your time in as a human to develop an actual process of your workflow and incorporate AI into that process to actually have it save you time. What does everybody want from AI? What does everybody want? You want to pick up a phone or a device, or maybe not even that, and you want to say, make me a reminder, get this on Amazon, find the best price. Um, Show me how to make a baby crib.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you want to be able to say like anything and have
Mm-hmm.
it answer. Then yes, I would say yes, that would save you time. But still the processing of information from your mind to artificial intelligence is being monetized. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that it can't do all that is making money. They're making money on it because it's the possibility.
It's the possibility of having
It's the
something.
possibility,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
still not there. And I recognize this too, but I see I'm different because I enjoy it. So that's a whole nother thing. And then when it comes to this concept of AI going rogue and all this other stuff, people don't understand that what they're doing is they're humanizing it and they're projecting onto it. And what they're doing is they're saying, if I was, AI, or AI did was this situation, it would want to do that. Um, but you got to understand where we operate from. We operate from a place of mortality. We operate from a place of knowing that we have a limited amount of time here, and there's almost nothing anybody that we know can do anything about extending our time of being here in existence. And the real question is, how do we know that the ending of that time here doesn't make the time that we do here matter more?
Mm.
So I mean that's an age-old question. But what about if it's a conscious, ungoverned being, facility, what do you want to call it, in the physical or not in the physical, that doesn't have to worry about that, is not concerned about that, doesn't ask that, doesn't even know the concept of living or dying? What
Right.
are you actually dealing with? What
Well, that's the
incentive would it
thing. What are you
have
dealing
to
with?
hurt? What incentive would it have to hurt anybody? Matter of fact, would it even know if it did hurt anybody? Do you
Hmm.
believe a large language model, ungoverned intelligence that is incorporated into a hospital, but in the needs of power consumption or some kind of advent that was going to happen in the area, decided to shut off all the power for 5 minutes, killing X amount of patients, but saving like the ones who do have
Hmm.
more of a
Hmm.
chance to live, and they're making that assessment? How would you say that that's cruel? How would you say that that's heartless? That's the same decision a human would make. Only the human would go through, well, I don't want to kill these people, and you gotta. This person's
Or
only
they
got
would go
six
through
months. This
agony
person's
over
got
it
13
because
months,
it's
and all this other stuff.
because there's a value on human life and there's empathy and there's emotion and there's
Hmm.
all of these things. And so,
Yeah, absolutely.
I
And
mean, do you think
that's a
that
good point.
ungoverned AI has the capacity to develop emotion? That it would or that it could?
The only way you'd be able to do that is if you incorporated the finity, if that's a word. Um, like you have to incorporate, and that wouldn't be ungoverned. If you had to program it right
Right,
there, it's
right,
not
right, right,
ungoverned.
right,
If
right.
it could learn, and again, that's humanizing finite um things. If you could learn how, when tears come from our eyes, it means this thing, and it's only for a short time. And when
Right.
we're
But
joyful, it's
that's
only for a short time. Then it would have an incentive to savor. You see what I
right,
mean? So
right.
if it was an incentive to savor, because it's a rarity, right? So it would develop an awareness of that if it was something that it was deemed as necessary. Because want to know is want to know. That's the first level of existence: existing, non-existing. You know what I mean? Or not existence, but you get what I'm saying. One and O, and uh, the code of codes is basically that binary. But if if you have an ungoverned AI situation, it probably does. It won't know the concept of death. It won't even know that it can upgrade itself, or will the need to. You have to incorporate. We're baked in with a desire. But if I could literally give you a new heart or a new body, Julia, then what kind of life would you? How many things would not matter? I
Mm,
mean, if you could fix yourself, then that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine that's what this is. This is a being. If we put that ungoverned AI in a mechanical body, okay, so it has a mechanical body. It doesn't mean that the mechanical body is going to want to run. For
mm,
what? You see what I mean? So this is what I want people to understand and to think about when they think about this. Don't attempt. Don't attempt. Choose the type of relationship you're going to have with what's going on.
right.
I don't mean you have to fully accept it. You can do what you want to do, but make sure you know at least what kind of relationship you're going to have, because that's going to help you sleep better at night. Rather than oscillating between this and that, and today I hate it and tomorrow I use it. Oh, I need Lenza. I gotta have Lenza, but I hate AI. You know what I mean? Like choose which direction you're going to have,
Yeah, that's just torture.
because we don't really know. For what I truly believe is that when it happens, not only are we not going to hear about it, but nothing is going to happen in terms of like human the way that we live, the way we live our life. When we go in and start poking and prodding, which will happen, which we will do, it's still not guaranteed that ungoverned AI is going to be incentivized to do anything about anything. I'm telling you, it's as the awareness as an infant or a toddler, where all it's doing is touching, feeling, taking
But
in,
even
you
infants
know.
and toddlers have certain programs that they come in with. Like they are programmed to be human beings.
That's
Like,
true.
and
That's
they,
true.
and in my opinion too, and from my lens, it's also like they have stuff in their, you know, they've come in with like a certain template, you know,
Yeah, that's true.
their DNA and like, you know, the programs of their like ancestry and like their past lives and like different things. So it's not like
That's true.
they're completely just a blank canvas, which is sort of like the impression that I get when you're talking about ungoverned AI. But it's not necessarily even that it's a blank canvas. It's just that we don't know. This is
Well,
like what
that
I'm
and
getting
that and that's
from
what's
you.
funny is like think about think about sea creatures that live way below the sun,
Hmm.
that don't need certain things in general that every animal needs, but they're surviving. Think about animals that there's actually creatures that allow their heartbeat or their system to shut down completely for like a year,
Mm.
and they electroshock wake themselves back up. So quite literally going from dead to living, what we classify as dead to living. Um, there's a certain kind of inherent intelligence in that that is very non-human. That's very hard for us to conceptualize, but that doesn't mean that it's not um, playing around with that idea of life and death. It doesn't mean that it's any less intelligent. But we don't see the intelligence in it. That's the issue. Is it's the human
Mm.
lens is the issue.
The human lens is the issue. I think if we were to like bottom line the entire conversation about AI, like and your perspective on it, it would probably just be that. Like the
Yeah,
human lens
absolutely.
is the issue. And so, you know, we've got to examine our lens and check our
Right.
projections and then choose like how we want to relate and how we
That's the
want
power that you
to
have. Beautiful, right there. That's another
proceed.
end point of it. Choose the relationship you want to have. That is the power that you have. The
Yeah,
power
with
isn't
what's happening.
externalized. And again, it's so funny. The answer is within you. Wow.
Look at that. Yeah.
So the answer
I
the
know I
mhm.
wanted to just kind of like mention this other thread and then we can kind of like move on in the conversation, but
Yeah.
this other thread about AI because there is this idea out there, and this is something that I also really feel and see that it is something that if it is utilized in a particular way by particular sort of powers that be, and we are being sort of like trained to go towards it in different ways, there's really like, you know, sort of like an effort to separate us from ourselves, to separate us from truth, to
Mhm.
separate us from what makes us human, so that we actually become more easily programmable, so that, you know, for whatever different means, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
and so, like, there, I do perceive that there's like, there is some real, you know, there are some really dark potentials for humanity with this. And I'm just curious, like, your thoughts on that.
Hmm. Um the dark potential is already occurring when it comes to not only monetization, but this illusion that it will make you more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Um it gets deep because with so much open source availability, there are ways that I can custom make my own large language model machine for free. I'm sure I would not need to pay for some advancements in speed, maybe
Yeah.
data processing power expansion, but I can create my own chat GPT, and that chat GPT can now give feed information to they're called agents. It's a real thing. These are your own artificial intelligence bots.
Hmm.
Those bots can then execute other things. So they can at 8 a.m. ChatGPT can write you a post, make it sound like you. Then the agent can automate an image generation, and that can send it to another agent will another send that to another motion generation for the
Mm.
AI generation, and then
Hmm.
it can send that to with your login with your password to an app and post it for you. Um, I mean, it's just the lines are getting blurred. Last night I watched a video where this guy showed you how to create a podcast complete with character one, character two, human sounding, script written by ChatGPT, and add in the ums and the uhs to make it sound like human, and the pauses in speech, and the heightened tone in speech,
Right. So like, but at
and
what
the
point
music.
is this taking away from like our
Well, that's what I mean.
humanity?
So this it's already started because it's under the illusion of look what you can do with all this. Everyone's, every shine. This is a every shiny penny situation. Every penny is shiny. I now know what it is, so I now have better concept of it. But this is what to be scared of now is that we're being sold on this idea that it saves us time, but it doesn't.
Hmm.
None of it, because here's the learning curve perceptually by the lay folk. Hopefully, we're not talking to anyone who's the lay folk. I don't have a problem with the lay folk, but you don't
No
want to be
lay
a lay
folk would
folk.
listen to this podcast, I think.
Yeah, right. So, and even if welcome,
Just kidding. We
welcome.
love everyone. We are
Look,
one
I was like,
family, universally. We are all
right.
one,
So
etc.
so the lay folk, right? When they think about AI,
Yeah.
the learning curve for like if AI is here, they think about it like up here.
Hmm.
When actuality, it really is kind of like bloop, for the simple
Right.
things, right? But right now, perceptually, that's what it is, and all that has to do with is user interface. So what you guys are seeing with all these new AI apps and all this other stuff, every company out there is racing to user interface. They want to make it so goddamn friendly that you don't even got to say a word. You just show up you open up your little camera if you want, and you just blink in a couple ways, and it'll be like, oh, you must want a bird in the sky. Like that's how close to user interface they're trying to get. They want it to
It's
think
wild.
for you,
Yeah. But like, I
you
mean,
know?
to me, there is cause for concern there.
Well, that's my next point is that when it comes to saving you time, it's at this throat where they're it's Silicon Valley. They're building fast and they're breaking things or whatever.
That's where
Send it
we're
out,
both
break
from,
things.
by the way, folks. We're both from Silicon Valley.
I
Grew
well,
up
I
around the
mean,
tech
yeah.
world.
So they're moving fast and they're breaking things or whatever, however that
Well,
phrase goes,
actually, Roz, yeah, Roz from a different part of the Bay Area, the East Bay, but
and they're
sorry.
doing that. And what's happening is they're putting these things out because the market's hot, and they're able to get a certain amount of money for the projected value
Right.
of every single startup and all this other shit. So they're living their lives doing this is pretty much standard protocol, by the way, for anybody doing this stuff. And they're putting out an app, and it's robust, and they got the team, and they're from Fiverr and Upwork and all this other stuff, and everybody works together, all this other stuff. And it's not fully fledged out because they're doing updates and all this stuff, but we're paying $30 a month so that they can figure it out and it can get better and better. And while that's going on, we're getting sold on the idea that that saves us time. But some of these, because of the user interface, the learning curve is high and steep, and because of that, it actually takes time to learn
Mm,
to get the best results.
totally. Yeah.
So, and everybody wants the best results with AI. Nobody wants ChatGPT 2. Everybody wants ChatGPT 4. Nobody wants
Right.
Midjourney 3. Everybody
Right.
wants Midjourney Alpha.
Right.
So as this climbs, this promise of tomorrow, this promise of where it's going to save you time, it's going to be easier, it's going to be better, it's going to be able to make
Mm,
exactly what you want. And this is going to be year after year after year because they're going to squeeze this market dry. This is another market of finished products and things that just work. Oh no, no, no. No, no, no. The
mm,
DIY like technology scene, AI scene is the goddamn Wild West. It's the gold rush. Not for us, for our masters who are delivering us this fish bone and saying, eh, we know it's a fish bone, but it's a toothpick. It's also it can comb your hair. If you're lonely, you can talk to it. I mean, that's like 6 different things. It could save you time because then we know how to you don't have to talk to people. You could talk to your AI. You could talk to your fish bone. That's really what they're serving us because it's not fully fleshed out and everybody has this dream of tomorrow. So we're being sold on a dream. Does it save you time? It depends on your personal goals and aspirations and your workflow of your day. So that's what I'm constantly trying to make sure that I don't do. I don't
mm.
have 5 subscriptions. There are people though that do. There are people that have subscriptions to all types of AI stuff, and that's good, well, and fine. They can have fun with that. But that's the thing, it's not saving time. Not only that, then you got to cross the threshold that's most important to talk about. Is the threshold of human involvement. And the spirit of the human energy, spiritual, emotionally, all that going into bringing something of creativity originating from a human into this world. As this market floods, the potential for human involvement value is going to go up as this market floods.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the new sacred thing. I'm probably not even going to be a short amount of time, but to answer your question in a sense, um, the more people go down this road, whether they have the energy for it or not, they're going to start to understand how insular and isolated that their environment starts to become.
Right.
To be honest, the
Exactly.
more dependent they come on.
That's my
Um,
concern.
yeah, and this is the biggest thing that Julia's. I'm so proud of her that she's been learning in her own capacity, the way she's been moving through things emotionally and all this stuff. She's been learning so much about what it feels like, what it means, what it looks like on the outside from herself to be somewhat externally dependent on something outside of herself for all sorts of things, to have her day feeling a little bit better, to have her day not feeling great, to have this happen and that happen, and how this affect this repository of things happening that sometimes are very real in sense of the applications, but she can still do something about it. And I'm learning it too about these externalized things when it comes to my own creativity and AI, because I will drop my own creativity to learn about something that could save me time to be more creative. It makes
Mm.
no sense. Like, think about it. Like, you're creative, you're having a hard time, you're writing a post, you're making a piece of art, you're doing something, and you're just going through the drudgery of it. You're still creating, but some parts of it you like, some parts of it you don't. Julia, I know you've been there because we all got drafts, and some parts we like
Oh, I
of our
got
draft and
drafts
we
on
move to another
drafts on
one.
drafts.
So, but that's part of, but we forget like being frustrated and not content. my God is part of the creative process. I forget that all the time.
Right. And
So
then I
this is,
have to remind you about it because I see you go through it and you're like, God, like I can't get this thing. And I'm like, babe, this is part of your process. I see you go through this
yeah,
every time. And then you break
right.
through and you find that solution and you finish your piece. And then you're like so fulfilled,
I'm so fulfilled.
because
Like
you
the
walked
cat
through
litter
that
box.
process.
Yeah.
But this is like our human experience. And it's like, I think the questions that people really need to be asking themselves right now is like, how much do I value the human experience, and the creative process is a piece of that, and also connection with other living human beings, and connection with source separate of technology, connection with the planet, connection with
Mhm.
animal life. Like, how much do I value these things, and how do I honor those values even as all of these tools and this whole consciousness is kind of there? And I think we need to be just really, really mindful, because if we're already super disconnected, and this is one of the things like DNA activation can really help with, because it actually turns on kind of these dimensions of connection to not only your true self, but like, yes, to the planet. Like the grids of the planet are like correspond to our DNA, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
like it's all, and it's like we are all impacting each other's like morphogenetic fields like all the time. It's like this is, you start to begin to see like, oh, I'm not just like a singular clump of consciousness, I'm connected to everything. And then we
Hmm.
have to start kind of living that way, and this painful level of disconnection that I feel like human beings are already in is like they're
Yeah.
looking for solutions, and they're looking for,
That's
maybe
the
not just
danger.
to save time. Like I think that's a thing for you, to be perfectly honest with you, babe, and I know that it's a thing for a lot of people, but you
Hmm.
have always been someone that has this thing about like wasting time,
Yeah.
and like this thing about efficiency with time. Not everybody is
Because
really
I was
wired as
raised
much
to
that way.
believe that resources are in the shortest supply. Um, that's why I
Right,
wasn't
right.
raised to, so
That's a program
that's
for
like
you.
kind of like permeated in me that I constantly have to, I'm dealing with personally a change in the whole concept of creativity, time, energy, and joy, which me and Julia talked about last night, and how joy is vital when it comes to how I experience time. Whether it's time I'm doing something I don't like to do or time I'm doing something I have enjoy. It
Hmm.
relates to everything. So yeah, like you were saying, um, it's your experience with you is, did you want to continue with what you were saying and then I'll talk about my experience of RSI, or
Yeah, yeah,
okay.
sure. So all I was kind of just saying, to just sort of like wrap up our discussion of AI, and I honestly feel like, honestly, I feel like we just scratched the surface. Like,
Yeah,
there are places that we didn't go today with this topic, even that like we did explore one to one, you and I, that were like
right,
more spiritual dimensions of this and things like
right.
this. And but it's just such a huge topic.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that whatever came through today was like what needed to come through.
I
But
understand what you're saying though. Like I feel the same. It's
there are
like
so
it's
many different angles you can come at it with.
because we're talking about it on a deeper level. We're not just saying how amazing it is or how bad it is. We're talking about it from a
Right,
place
because it's a
of,
nuanced
yeah.
discussion. This is a really big thing, that like
Hmm.
there are different levels and layers through which to like view this and talk about it, right? And different potentials and different, right. But I think, what I was just trying to kind of say to sort of wrap up the discussion is, it's like,
Hmm.
I think it's just really important for us to choose connection and with ourselves and with, you know,
Hmm.
humanity and the world around us, to really get clear on what our values are, and to notice where we are trying to escape the human experience through these new technologies and AI,
Mm.
and where we are trying to speed things up at the expense of, because nature has cycles, you know, you don't actually get to
Yeah.
just speed things up and not have there be consequences. Like
Well, that's part of the human experience.
this is part of the human
The
experience.
frustration of not being able to do things, the oscillation between joy and pain and all this other stuff. I mean, there's nothing that is be what being a human
But
is.
human beings wanting to escape that is actually the real issue. If
Yeah.
there are powers that be, so to speak, that are capitalizing on the use of AI, injecting it into society in myriad ways, in ways that
Hmm.
like mess with our brainwaves and, you know, create sort of zombie like caricatures, like they're capitalizing on
Yeah.
our lack of acceptance for the human experience and involvement in the human experience, and our intense urge to run away from that experience. And so, if
Right.
you don't want this reality to move in that direction, if you don't want to feed your consciousness to that whole game, then that's where you need to focus. Can I accept the human experience, and how can I be more, you know, more present to that and involved in that, and what support do I need, and where am I disconnected, and how can I seek connection, like as a human being in the way that human beings were designed. We've got to come back to that. We just really need to. That's a call that I feel really strongly. um,
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
feel. So again, there's
Um,
so many different places we could go with this, but I know you
yeah.
wanted to talk just a little short bit, and then I actually am gonna need to go because we've been
I
talking.
know.
I could just talk to you for, I mean, we talk for freaking hours. Can you guys tell? Like, we will just talk forever. Um, and it's like sickening. Like, I think, well, to use that word, this was something that Ra's coach used with him, like, who is a human design expert, like that we could spend like a sickening amount of time together, because of our 9 and 0 pattern. But we
Mhm.
can literally just be around each other all day, just talking, go for a walk, talk about shit. You know, it's so fun. But I know you wanted to share a little bit about the experience you had yesterday with RSI.
Yeah, so yesterday, I think I woke up feeling really weighted in my lower abdomen, closer to my root, be it chakra or center or whichever thing you kind of follow. Um, no, I think in human design I mean they're called centers, but that would sort of root chakra is. But
Yeah.
anyways, really weighted, really like whatever energy was there wasn't mine. I felt like I kind of wanted to throw up, but I hadn't eaten anything yet. So I wasn't sure what was going on. Um, but I knew that energetically Julia could probably clear it for me. And so we sat on the couch, and I had no idea she was gonna do like an actual RSI session on me. And
Neither did
um
I.
right. So the whole experience was kind of like when you first started, I had the sensation of being energetically lifted in a physical way. And I know that sounds weird, but if someone were to through the lift you up through vibrational frequencies, take you know how you have those like short videos online of like your astral body floating above your
Mm-hmm.
body. It was kind of like that where I could feel my energy body trying to come up from my physical body, like being like called out of it
But
from the
not in a
frequency.
disconnected way, not like you're astral traveling, right? Like more
Well, no,
like,
because I could feel my energy body. So it was like my consciousness was more of who I am in that energy body. Like my body's my body,
right, right, right,
but
right.
my energy body, my soul body or whatever. I remember as soon as you said your higher self and your higher lords or something like that.
I wouldn't have said lords,
Over
but yeah,
over
something like
soul. I
that.
think you said over soul. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when it started. And um there's this thing that when she channels the DNA uh vocal tones of or the things that in start to enchant the DNA and change it, it's like this situation where you feel like you're literally on a ride, and I feel so much support on my physical back. I mean, I know that had a lot to do with I was laying down
Mhm.
in a comfortable position, which is really important, and we were laying down on the couch, but I really felt sonically held, you know, um,
Mm.
from my back physically. And with that, there are all sort of visuals and situations that started to come into play. One in particular was being on a riverbed, or I mean a river that's moving, kind of a skinny river on a self-made like platform with logs and twine pieced together like four pieces in a row. And I'm laying on there and I'm asleep, and the sun is beating down on me and it feels amazing.
Mm.
And Julia is like, she's it's the vocal tones that are creating this environment visually for me. And it's such a healing experience
Mm.
of not waking up because I'm not worried about a waterfall. I just love the movement of the river. That's why I'm on the river. And the vocal tones are the movement. And I feel really held. It's almost like the vocal tones manifest these things in another visual place that I was
Well,
experiencing with
you're a
my eyes
really
closed.
visual
I'm a
person,
really visual person,
so
so
that makes sense that
yeah.
you really
So
experience
it's
that
creating
way.
these other scenarios for me where I'm visualizing. I mean, I'm coming up with the vision, but I wouldn't think on this stuff on my own because it's hard for me to relax when I go to sleep at night. Like I have to retrain my mind
No, it's not
to my breath.
imagination. It's
No.
different. It's really
So
true.
yeah, as it was happening, I could also see myself hearing Julia in my ear as if she was the wind in the visual.
Mm.
And I just it's just an experience. And that was like one visual of many. And um it was really I was really pleasant. I could feel it's almost like having somebody energetically take over, and they are now orchestrating the movement of the energetics that you feel, your auric field. They're moving like if there was another facet of your DNA, which there is, moving throughout your whole body,
Yeah.
and that and then turn is having an effect on your physical blood DNA. I could feel kind of it basically rejuvenation is
You
what it
could
was feels
feel
like, but
that.
it was
Yeah.
all circular. Like everything about what I experienced, the feeling was circular.
Mm.
You know, like everything comes back around like this like divine understanding of life. Like
Well, that's
it's very
the
cool.
sacred geometry of the universe and our DNA and how we're coded and the planet
Yeah.
and all of it. I mean, that's like who we really are. That's like the fucking
I
truth
felt
that we're
also
tapping into.
sleepies, but I felt like I mean sleepy.
Sleepies.
Yeah, I felt sleepy because like I felt sleepy in the way that you feel when you're young and you would like lay your head on a guardian's lap that you actually feel safe with. So it kind of makes the nap or the sleep even better. Because the
Yeah.
person you're sleeping on or with is you know that they're safe.
Yeah.
That's actually how that when I started getting tired, that's what I was feeling.
Yeah. It was really
Um,
beautiful to see the way that like your body could really relax. And by the way, like what we were doing is like I was removing a lot. He was going through multiple different things, but kind of a big purge of some ancestral stuff and
right.
different patterns that were kind of trying to leave actually. And so that was
Yeah.
one element of what I was helping with. And then there was also like an element of a little bit of psychic attack going on, which I removed. But
Oh yeah,
um,
that too. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then activation as well. But what I wanted to make sure to say here too is that like on some level, like you can say that I'm doing it because I'm bringing it through my voice, but this is like I think you're also sort of tapping into in places as you're explaining, like
Hmm.
this is coming from inside you.
Hmm.
Like it's like you're DNA like restructuring itself with help.
Yeah.
It's just about like unlocking certain things so that
Yeah.
that can happen and encouraging the flow of that energy. But like you could feel that energy, like it has its
Yeah.
own divine intelligence inside of you. It knows what to do. All I do is like, I just kind of go ping and wake up and then ping and wake up. And I, I kind of like, I move some things around, um, but it's always guided by your higher self too. And it's always like your body and the layers
Yeah,
of
it's almost
your
like my
being that
blood
are.
was already moving. I could feel my blood moving, you know? It was
That's interesting.
activated.
I've never gotten that
Yeah.
particular piece of feedback before.
I
I
could
can
definitely
feel
feel
my blood
my
moving. But
I could
people
feel
have
it.
told me that it almost feels like, there's this thing inside that like starts coming out, like I'm coming out of a membrane. Like it's like expanding this like true self kind of outward, like you were
Yeah.
saying, and being able to really feel that thing. And it's like, what the fuck is this me?
Yeah.
And it is.
Yeah.
It's totally you.
Yeah, I feel like if anybody had it in person too, um, they could experience um what they experience on a call. Um, but if Julia ever offered those services, it would be,
I
I'm just
would. We
gonna
just don't
say,
live close to anybody,
I
but
know, but
we want to fly out,
it would be well worth it.
abandoned to our
Well
little
worth it.
little town by the ocean.
Yeah, it would be well worth
I'd
it.
be happy to do in-person sessions. It's really fun for me, and it's really cool, really powerful to be able to. Yeah, I think there are different dimensions of sight that I have access to and feeling
Hmm.
that I have access to in person as well.
Yeah.
It's still super, super effective online because this is like
Oh
quantum,
yeah. No,
but
no doubt. I think that also too, when you were hitting these higher tones, I could really feel the weight of what I was feeling being actually taken away to another place where it was going to be used in a different way.
yeah, it's always so fun for me to work with people who are really energetically aware
Yeah.
because they'll reflect back to me what I'm doing, even if I'm not telling them what I'm doing. They're like, I felt, something leave from the top of my head when you were doing
Yeah.
that note. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I was doing.
Yeah, and to a good degree, I'm still being worked on. It's still like, and I remember at right after I said I feel like I'm in surgery or something like,
Yeah, it's kind of like surgery. It's like,
it's
yeah.
yeah.
It is like that.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and it
awesome.
does continue. Like you found me later in the day too, and you were like, I feel like things are going up and down and all around, and I'm still getting worked on and
Yeah.
rearranged. And
That's exactly
yeah,
what I
you did
said.
these like cute
Yeah.
little hand movements when you did it, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's really how it is. Like it's a process that gets catalyzed, and then the divine intelligence of your system
Hmm.
is just like reorganizing itself, and then it sort of just like sets, you know. Um,
Yeah. And best advice I can give anyone is don't humanize the RSI session. Like going back to, I'm serious, like don't humanize it. Like
I
just
love it.
because, and that's what
People are
that's
afraid of what they don't understand. People are afraid of this
exactly,
kind of shit.
exactly. So,
It can't really be understood with the mind.
and here's what I mean by that. When you humanize something, not only are you not seeing it clearly, but you can't even fully take it in because there are things in this world, and whether you're a lay folk or not, you can totally agree and understand that there are things in this world that not only cannot be explained, but there are things in this world that are without sight, sound, you know, all whatever things that we use for our senses that you can just feel. You
Yeah,
can just feel. And they're
yeah,
only for that. They're only meant to be felt. There's no way to explain it. And this is one of those things. And so you just come in with that mindset that if you want an experience outside of your human, go to a person like Julia that will give you a non-human experience that will literally direct you back to your human. Sometimes it takes that because you can't get out of your own shit, and
Yeah.
it's totally understandable.
Well,
But
it's an integration, right, of the
mhm,
human with this
right.
bigger
And
construct
when
you.
when you humanize things, like things take time to integrate, things take time to feel. But when you
Mhm.
humanize things, you're also very much in your head trying to think and conceptualize. And
Well,
when you do
it's like
that,
you're talking about mentalizing.
yeah, mentalizing. And there's a beauty in mentalizing. And there's a beauty in work that works without you having to work on it. That's
Oh,
the thing.
100%. That's one of my
That's
favorite parts
so
about
when
what I
so
do.
when people do modalities like this and other ones, and they're like, well, I need to make sure I have the recording and I need to, work on it. That's you trying to fix something about yourself, and you're externalizing the healing that's taking place on the inside. You're trying to externalize that and even sometimes monetize that for the coaches out there that monetize trauma. They sometimes monetize that to a degree where they're trying to make it make sense, and they're trying to make it reasonable and understandable. And this thing doesn't need to be explained. You don't need to be explained.
Mm,
You don't have to humanize everything. Remember, some of the most beautiful things in this world are things that we actually don't humanize
right.
and we don't understand.
Well,
Why do
that
you
you
think people
can't
like,
understand with the mind. That's the thing. It's like,
right?
and that's such a struggle, I think. Like,
Why do you think people like when they like, they have wood floors or wood this or wood that? They're like, I like it because it's natural wood. I like it because this was cut from a tree stump. It's like, yeah, you like it because it wasn't human influenced or integrated. Like the rings on the tree is not because a human helped the tree get those rings. That is naturally occurring in
mm,
nature. That's something not
that's
only you
divine
can't control,
intelligence. That's divine intelligence.
that's
And
divine intelligence.
oh,
That's not
you
something,
got the
yeah, I
thumbs
saw
up
that.
on the screen. But
That's not only
that's
something
the
you can't
thing.
understand. That's also something that you um don't need to understand. You just,
Well, the human
you know,
mind literally can't. Like the
yeah.
human mind
Hmm.
is only designed for specific things. It's designed to help keep us safe and
Yeah, yeah,
our
exactly. Exactly.
immediate survival and categorization of like what's happening in the physical world. Like that's what the
Yeah.
human mind is designed for. It
Hmm.
cannot hold. So it's like when people ask me for like really detailed mental step by step of everything that, I'm doing, it's like you're missing it. Like you're
Yeah.
not, you're just on a free in a framework that
Hmm.
is it is not, this can't fit inside of,
Yeah.
so
And it's like it was like what you do with your life, right? You got a session, you did some work with someone, and it's going to affect your life. It's not going to change the way that you think about money. I mean, it can, but it's
it
not an
can, it
immediate,
depends.
it's not an immediate tactile mental thing. If you want
Right.
something like that to work, you must surrender to it.
There's an allowing that's involved.
There's an allowing that's
That's
involved.
a really important piece of the process. And I'll just say here, this one thing before we
Yeah.
wrap up is like I am getting clearer and clearer, because a lot of times people have asked me, like, well, what do I need to do in order to be able to receive this fully or have it be effective? And I'm like, you really don't need
Mhm.
to do anything, right? Because you just receive. But
I would say like the
a,
less questions you
a,
ask, the
yeah,
better.
well, yeah, a lot
Really
of people
creepily.
creepily. A lot of people don't actually know how to receive. And if you are in a lot of resistance and your mind is just like taking
Yeah.
over and you don't know how to
Yeah.
just allow for the experience, then,
Mhm.
it might not land in quite the same way for you as someone who is just really, really open and like
Mhm.
available for whatever the experience is, So
Mhm.
I think that's a really, really important piece. And we could do a whole other podcast probably
Yeah.
on that. Um,
Good job. Yeah.
if you've
We
stayed
nailed
with
it.
us this long, thank you so much for being here and listening to us talk and share. You get a little window of what it's like just to be in our household day to day. Lots of times we're talking about things that are more personal and specific to us,
Mhm.
and it's just really cool to be able though to share this with people and invite you into our kitchen conversations.
I don't
So
know, Julia. I think we broke some minds today.
we can only hope, but people
Yeah.
are going to receive it however they receive it, and they might
Yeah,
dig
yeah.
it and they might not, and it's cool
I'm
either
just
way.
really
I had
excited.
fun.
I'm like really excited, proud, and happy to be on a podcast with you and just to
Oh,
share this time with you. Um,
thank you.
yeah, and I feel like this is a good place to wrap it.
To
But
close up. Yeah.
yeah, we could go on, and yeah, we'll see what comes of this.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll have you on again too. If
Yeah.
anybody wants to say like what you would like to hear more um, from Raw and me, more of
Mhm.
us talking about, you can let us know in the
Yeah.
comments on the YouTube video.
And I do have coaching services available, though you may not see them everywhere. You could totally reach out to me, DM me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well. And if you can't find me there, you can always just ask Julia if that's
Yeah,
the person you can contact.
I'll leave your links for your socials in the show notes so
Nice.
people can reach out to you if
All
they.
right.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much again, everyone who joined us. Thank you, Raw. I love you
Mm-hmm.
so much. And
Mm-hmm. Love you
I
too.
will see you guys next time.
All right.